The paper tore louder than it should have. Clean, violent rip right down the middle. White sheets fluttered to the marble floor like wounded birds, landing at my wife's feet as 40 people watched in silence. "Is this a joke?" her boss said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Because if it is, it's not funny." My wife froze. Her hands trembled, still clutching the edge of the conference table as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. I could see it from where I stood, near the back wall, half hidden behind a decorative plant no one ever watered. I remember the smell first: burnt coffee, cheap cologne, polished wood, and humiliation, pure public humiliation. 3 seconds earlier, she had been hopeful. 3 seconds earlier, she had slid that proposal across the table with a small, careful smile. The kind people wear when they've worked nights, skipped meals, and still believe effort matters. Then came the rip. "I told you," her boss continued, raising his voice now. "This presentation was critical. And this," he nudged the torn papers with his shoe. "This is amateur trash." A few people laughed. Not loudly. That made it worse. I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. "Don't move," I told myself. "Watch. Remember." Because this wasn't just about the document anymore. This was about power. My name is Adam Hale. I was 34 years old at the time. Most people thought I was nothing special, quiet, forgettable. The guy who stood in the corner holding a coat. The husband who didn't interrupt. The man whose presence didn't change a room's temperature when he entered. I'd been described, more than once, as nice but invisible. And I let them believe that. 6 months before that moment, my life was simple on the surface. I woke early, made breakfast, kissed my wife, Lena, on the forehead before she rushed out the door. I wore plain clothes, drove an unremarkable car, kept my head down, normal, safe. But standing there, watching a room full of executives pretend tearing someone apart was leadership, something shifted. Not explosively, not dramatically, just decisively. "Do you know how embarrassing this is?" her boss snapped. His name was Victor Cross. Tall, silver-haired, perfect teeth. The kind of man whose suits cost more than most people's rent. He liked to remind people of that. Victor didn't just run the company, he owned it. At least that's what everyone believed. He had that casual cruelty that comes from never being challenged. And Lena? She was replaceable. In his eyes, she was a line item. "You begged for this opportunity," Victor continued. "And you deliver this?" Lena opened her mouth, closed it. I could see her swallow. I followed the guidelines," she said softly. "We hit all the metrics you asked for." Victor laughed. Actually laughed. He turned to the room. "Did you hear that?" She followed the guidelines. More laughter. A man to his left shook his head. A woman across the table avoided eye contact entirely. No one defended her. No one ever does when they're afraid of losing their seat. "If you can't handle pressure," Victor said, leaning closer, "maybe you're not cut out for this environment." Then he delivered the line that changed everything. "Frankly, I don't know why we hired you in the first place." Something inside me tightened. That's enough. But I didn't move. Yet, if you're enjoying the story so far, if you've ever watched someone you love be humiliated while everyone else stayed silent, pause for a second, take a breath, and keep reading, because this is where things begin to break. Lena's face flushed. I saw the moisture in her eyes, the way she blinked it back with practiced precision. She'd learned that trick years ago. Don't cry in front of people like this. It only feeds them. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'll revise it tonight." Victor waved a dismissive hand. "Save it." Then, as if remembering I existed, he glanced toward me. "And you are." The room turned. Dozens of eyes locked onto me. I stepped forward just enough to be polite. "Adam," I said. "Her husband." Victor's eyebrow lifted slightly. "Ah." That single syllable carried judgment. He looked me up and down. Cheap shoes, plain watch, no visible status markers. I saw the calculation finish behind his eyes. Not a threat. "Well," Victor said, smiling thinly, Perhaps you can help her understand what excellence looks like. More laughter. My jaw clenched. Don't react, I reminded myself. Not yet. Because reacting is what men like Victor expect. And I'd learned a long time ago, expectations are leverage. The meeting ended shortly after. Not because it was over, but because Victor had gotten what he wanted. Control. People filed out in awkward silence, murmuring fake encouragement to Lena as they passed. Hang in there. He's tough on everyone. Don't take it personally. Cowardly phrases people use to excuse cruelty. Lena gathered the torn pages from the floor with shaking hands. I knelt beside her, helping quietly. Hey, I said softly. It's okay. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the paper. I worked so hard on that, she whispered. I really thought. I know, I said, and I did, because I'd watched her stay up night after night, laptop glowing in the dark while the rest of the city slept. I'd watched her doubt herself, rewrite sections, second-guess every line. And for what? To be torn apart for sport. As we walked toward the elevator, Victor's assistant hurried past us. Adam, she whispered quickly, eyes darting behind her. I'm sorry about that. He was in a mood. I smiled politely. No worries, I said, but inside my mind was already working. Mood, I thought, or pattern, because I'd noticed something over the past year. Victor didn't humiliate everyone, just certain people. The ones who didn't come from money, the ones without connections, the ones who wouldn't fight back. People like Lena, people like me. The elevator doors closed. Silence. Then Lena broke. She leaned against the mirrored wall, shoulders shaking. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, she said. No matter how hard I try, it's never enough. I turned to her. It's not you. She looked up. Then why does it feel like it is? Because people like Victor build empires by making others feel small. I didn't say that. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pressed stop. The tiny red light disappeared. I slipped my phone back into my jacket. What was that? She asked, wiping her eyes. Nothing, I said gently. Just an alarm. Not a lie. Just not the whole truth. 6 months earlier, I'd installed a custom recording app on my phone. Not because I was paranoid, because I was prepared. I'd learned the value of documentation the hard way, back when people underestimated me far more than they did now. And Victor talked too much. He liked the sound of his own authority. And men like that always forget one thing. They assume no one's listening. That night, Lena fell asleep early. Exhaustion does that. It shuts the body down before the mind can process the damage. I stayed awake, sitting at the kitchen table, listening to the recording again. Victor's voice filled the room. Amateur trash. I don't know why we hired you. Clear. Undeniable. I set my phone down slowly. Then I made a call. One I'd never planned to make, but had always known might come. Hey, I said when the line connected. It's Adam. A pause. Then a familiar voice replied, calm and curious. I was wondering when you'd call. I looked at the dark window, my reflection staring back at me. Quiet, unassuming, overlooked. Not anymore. I think, I said carefully, it's time we talked about Victor Cross. The voice on the other end smiled. About time, he said. I've been waiting for a reason. I ended the call, and for the first time that day I slept, because the humiliation was over, and the reckoning, it had just begun. 6 months before Victor Cross tore my wife's proposal in half, I was already living a double life. Most people thought I worked in consulting. That was the word I used because it ended conversations quickly. Vague enough to avoid questions. Boring enough to be forgettable. In reality, I was a quantitative risk architect, which is a polite way of saying, I found weaknesses in systems people believed were unbreakable. Banks, hedge funds, private equity firms, corporate holding structures so layered even their own executives didn't fully understand them. I didn't gamble. I didn't speculate. I modeled inevitability, and I got very, very good at it. I built my firm quietly. No website at first. No LinkedIn, no sementes. No flash titles. Just results. I worked with a handful of ultra-private clients, family offices, distressed asset buyers, people who made money not by creating things, but by knowing when things were about to fall apart. I didn't wear suits because I didn't need to impress anyone. The people who mattered already knew my name. Victor Cross was not one of them. Yet, the irony? I could have ended him years earlier. But until Lena walked into my life, I'd never cared enough to aim. I met Lena 8 years ago. She was sharp, ambitious, kind in a way that hadn't been sanded down by the world yet. She believed hard work mattered. She believed merit rose naturally. I envied that innocence. When she joined Victor's company 3 years ago, she was excited, proud, nervous in that good way. It's such a great opportunity, she told me. They're growing fast. And Victor, he's brilliant. I didn't say anything, because I'd already heard the name. Cross holdings, private ownership, aggressive leverage, obsessive secrecy. Companies like that don't grow fast. They expand until gravity catches up. The disrespect started small. It always does. A joke in a meeting. Careful, Lena. This isn't a college project. A comment at a company dinner. You should smile more. Clients like that. Emails copied unnecessarily. Deadlines moved without notice. Praise given publicly to others for her work. Each incident was deniable. Each one was designed to test boundaries. And Lena, she endured, because she believed effort would protect her. I watched it happen. I said nothing. First, 3 months before the conference room incident, something changed. Lena came home late, later than usual. She wasn't upset, just quiet. Too quiet. How was work? I asked. She hesitated. Fine. That's when I knew it wasn't. I didn't push. I never do, because people talk when they feel safe. And 2 days later, she did. Victor asked me to stay after the meeting, she said, staring at her tea. Said he wanted to discuss my future. My fingers stilled. And he said I had potential, she continued, but only if I was more flexible. Flexible how? She swallowed. He put his hand on my shoulder. Too long. Then he said loyalty matters more than performance. That was the moment, the precise second. This is no longer passive, I thought. This is predatory. I didn't react. I kissed her forehead. And later that night, when she was asleep, I opened a file on my laptop. cross_holdings_overview.pdf. I hadn't touched it in years. The deeper I went, the uglier it became. Victor's empire was built on borrowed time and borrowed money. Shell companies feeding other shell companies. Inflated asset valuations. Quiet side deals routed through offshore structures that technically existed, but only just legal, barely, stable, not even close. I started mapping it. Slowly, methodically, every acquisition, every debt instrument, every pressure point. I wasn't angry. Anger clouds judgment. This was colder, cleaner. Then came the betrayal. Not from Victor, from someone closer. Lena's colleague, her work friend. A man named Ethan, mid-level management, fake humility, always ready with sympathy. He'd been the one encouraging her. Victor's tough, but he notices talent. Don't take it personally. You just need someone on your side. 2 weeks after Victor crossed the line, Lena discovered Ethan had been forwarding her private drafts to Victor, framing them as his strategic insights. I found out differently. I hired a private investigator, not because I suspected Lena, because I suspected everyone else. The report arrived on a Tuesday. Clean, clinical, emails, timestamps, messages deleted but recovered. Ethan wasn't just stealing credit. He was feeding Victor leverage, helping him decide who stayed and who broke. I closed the file. So that's how you want to play this. For the next 6 months, I prepared. Quietly, I acquired debt tied to cross holdings through intermediaries. I positioned short exposures where his public narrative didn't match his private numbers. I spoke to 3 law firms but retained none. Not yet. I let Victor continue. Let him believe he was untouchable. Let him humiliate my wife publicly. Because timing matters. And Victor's greatest weakness? He needed an audience. If you're still with me, if you've ever wondered how powerful people fall, this is where you lean in. Because downfall doesn't come from explosions. It comes from precision. By the time Victor tore Lena's proposal apart, I already controlled enough pressure points to collapse his world. He just didn't know it yet. The recording from that day, it wasn't my first, just the last piece I needed. That night, after the call I made, I opened my calendar. I circled a date 3 weeks away. Board dinner, annual review. Victor loved those dinners, loved the stage, loved the silence when he spoke. I smiled. Perfect. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's public. The dinner was held at Le Claire, a private members-only restaurant overlooking the river. Victor loved symbolism. Floor-to-ceiling glass, imported marble, waiters trained to speak only when spoken to. The kind of place where power didn't need to announce itself, it was assumed. I arrived exactly 4 minutes late. On purpose. Late enough to be noticed. Not late enough to be rude. Lena squeezed my hand as we entered. Her posture was perfect. Calm. Composed. Anyone watching would think the past few months had rolled off her like rain. They hadn't. But tonight wasn't about emotion. Tonight was about structure. Victor stood at the center of the room, wine glass raised, laughing loudly as 2 board members nodded along. He looked relaxed, confident, untouchable. When he saw us, his smile tightened for half a second. Just long enough. Adam. Lena, he said smoothly. You made it. We wouldn't miss it, I replied. My voice was even, neutral. Victor gestured toward our seats, near the middle of the table. Not an honor, not an insult. Strategic. He still didn't know who I was. Dinner progressed the way these things always do. Polite cruelty disguised as conversation. So, Lena, one executive said, swirling his drink, big quarter ahead, feeling ready this time. A soft chuckle traveled down the table. Lena smiled. I always am. Victor smirked. Let's hope preparation translates better than last time. I felt her knee tense against mine. I reached for my water. Didn't look at him. Not yet. If you're listening to this like a story, if you're wondering when the moment comes, understand this. Revenge isn't a strike. It's a sequence. And sequences require patience. Dessert plates were cleared. Victor stood. This was his favorite part. Before we wrap up, he said, I'd like to thank everyone for another exceptional year. Cross Holdings continues to outperform expectations. I tapped my phone once. Silently. Across the table, a man I'd never met glanced down at his watch. That was my signal. Victor continued. And with our new expansion into private infrastructure, the doors opened. 2 people entered. 1 woman, 1 man, both wearing tailored suits, neither smiling. Victor frowned. Is there a problem? The woman spoke calmly. Victor Cross. Yes. I'm Marion Lowell, Senior Counsel at Lowell & Pierce. This is Daniel Klein, Forensic Auditor. The room stilled. Victor laughed lightly. You're interrupting a private event. Marion nodded. We'll be brief. She placed a slim folder on the table. Then another. Then another. Each one stopped in front of a different board member. I watched faces drain of color. What is this? Victor snapped. I stood. Finally. An audit, I said. And a timeline. Victor turned slowly. His eyes narrowed. You? Yes. Recognition still hadn't arrived. Confusion had. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't smile. I represent a controlling interest in several debt instruments tied to Cross Holdings offshore entities. I continued. As of this afternoon, those instruments were consolidated. Victor scoffed. That's impossible. Marion interjected. It isn't. She opened one of the folders. Shell subsidiaries in Malta, Cyprus, and the Caymans, she said evenly. Intercompany loans inflated to conceal liquidity gaps. She slid a document forward. Daniel spoke next. Your reported EBITDA doesn't reconcile with cash flow. At all. The room buzzed. Board members whispered. One man stood abruptly. Victor. What the hell is this? Victor's face flushed. This is a setup. I nodded. Yes. Silence. I set it up. 3 seconds passed. Then Victor laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. You think you can walk in here and... I tapped my phone again. The speakers embedded in the room's sound system came alive. Victor's voice echoed. Frankly, I don't know why we hired you in the first place. Then another clip. Loyalty matters more than performance. Then another. Clear. Unedited. Timestamped. Victor froze. Lena didn't look at him. She didn't need to. That recording, Marian said calmly, combined with corroborating testimony, establishes a hostile work environment and coercive conduct. One board member dropped his napkin. Another whispered, Jesus. Victor's mouth opened, closed. I leaned forward slightly. You see, Victor, I said. You confused silence with weakness. His jaw tightened. You don't have standing. I do now. Daniel slid another document across the table. Foreclosure notices on 3 properties personally guaranteed by Mr. Cross, he said. Triggered by covenant breaches. Victor snatched the papers. His hands shook. This is the moment people imagine revenge to be. Shouting, smirking, victory speeches. It isn't. It's watching someone realize, too late, that every door behind them has quietly closed. One of the executives stood. I want indemnification, he said. Immediately, another followed. We're exposed. This needs to be disclosed. Victor slammed his palm on the table. Sit down. No one did. I turned to Ethan, sitting 2 seats down, pale and sweating. Oh, I said gently. And Ethan? He looked up like a trapped animal. The emails you forwarded? I continued. They establish misappropriation of intellectual property. I nodded toward Marianne. She's already filed. Ethan's chair scraped backward. I was just... Victor rounded on him. You idiot. That was the wrong move. Because Daniel spoke again. And finally, he said, we uncovered undisclosed compensation arrangements. He turned a page. Between Mr. Cross and Mr. Ethan. Ethan broke. I didn't have a choice, he blurted. He told me. Victor stared at him. Horror, rage, betrayal, all at once. Lena stood. The room quieted. She looked at Victor for the first time that night. You asked me once why you hired me, she said calmly. Victor said nothing. She smiled. You didn't. I earned my place. And you tried to take it. She turned to the board. I resign, she said. Effective immediately. Then she took my hand. And we walked away. Behind us, the room erupted. Shouting. Accusations. Phones ringing. Victor called my name. Once. Twice. I didn't turn around. At the door, I paused. Looked back. Happy New Year, Victor, I said quietly. I hope it's everything you deserve. The doors closed. And just like that, his world collapsed. The first envelope arrived 3 days later. Heavy paper. Legal weight. Victor Cross's name was printed on the return address in raised lettering. Old habits die hard. Inside was a cease and desist notice drafted by an expensive firm that clearly hadn't been briefed properly. I read it once. Then I slid it into a drawer labeled Resolved. By the end of the week, that drawer was full. The fallout didn't explode. It spread. Quietly. Relentlessly. Like a crack in ice that widens every time someone steps too confidently. On Monday, Cross Holdings delayed payroll. On Wednesday, 2 lenders called emergency meetings. By Friday, the board announced an internal review. Victor didn't attend. He couldn't. His personal accounts had been frozen pending investigation into undisclosed guarantees tied to corporate debt. The same guarantees Daniel had flagged at the dinner. Gravity had finally caught up. Lena watched it unfold from a distance.
No eschadem freude. No celebration.
Just distance. That surprised her. I thought I'd feel something, she admitted one night as we sat on the balcony. City lights humming below. Anger, satisfaction, relief. And, I asked. She thought for a moment. I feel free. I smiled. That was the point. 2 weeks after the dinner, Ethan was fired. Not quietly, publicly. The company framed it as a values violation. They always do. He tried to call Lena 3 times. She blocked him. Some lessons don't require words. Victor lasted longer than I expected. Pride will do that. He fought, threatened lawsuits, claimed defamation, leaked half-truths to friendly journalists. None of it stuck, because truth documented, time-stamped, corroborated has mass, and mass crushes spin. A month later, Cross Holdings announced restructuring. 3 months later, it was sold off in pieces. Victor Cross resigned for personal reasons. That phrase followed him everywhere after that. I saw him once more.
Pure coincidenze.
A cafe near the courthouse. He looked smaller, older. The silver hair was still there, but the certainty was gone.
No entourage. No talersut.
Just a man stirring coffee he wasn't drinking. He noticed me. Our eyes met. For a moment I thought he might speak. Apologize.
Accuse.
Beg. He didn't. He looked away. And that was enough. If you're listening to this and expecting me to say revenge felt good, I won't lie to you. Felt complete. There's a difference. Revenge fueled by rage burns you from the inside. Revenge built on preparation, it ends things. Cleanly. Lena didn't look for a new job right away. She didn't need to. For the first time in years, she rested. Read books that had nothing to do with performance metrics. Took long walks without checking her phone. Relearned who she was without someone evaluating her worth every quarter. Eventually, she found something new. Not another corporate ladder. A consultancy that helped young professionals, especially women, navigate toxic work environments without losing themselves. She didn't call it activism. She called it clarity. As for me, I stepped back. Not from my work, but from the shadows. I didn't hide anymore. I formalized my firm. Built a public-facing structure. Took on fewer clients, but better ones. People stopped underestimating me, which was inconvenient, but necessary. 6 months later, we moved. Not far. Just enough to leave the old memories behind. New place. More light. Fewer ghosts. On our first night there, Lena leaned against me and said something I'll never forget. Thank you for not becoming someone I couldn't recognize. That mattered more than Victor's collapse. More than the money. More than the win. A year passed. Victor Cross faded into a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms. Remember what happened to Cross? Yes, don't be like him. That's how power really dies. Not with drama, with irrelevance. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, if I do it again. Here's the truth. I don't regret defending my wife. I don't regret ending abuse masquerading as authority. And I don't regret reminding powerful people that silence is not consent. But I didn't win. I walked away. And that's the difference. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, humiliated, or quietly preparing while others laughed, remember this. You don't need to announce your strength. You don't need to rush. And you don't need revenge fueled by rage. Build leverage. Protect what matters. And when the time comes, choose precision. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life they can't touch. If the story meant something to you, like it, share it and leave a comment. You never know who needs to hear it next.